Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network. Hi, this is Amit Doshi, and I wanted to thank each and every one of our listeners. It's been 2 years since I founded IVM, and it's been an amazing 2 years. We wanted to learn a little bit more about who is listening to our shows, and so we put together a short survey. The survey is anonymous, and we aren't going to be collecting any personal information. I would really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes out of your day and go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill it out. Thanks, and please keep listening.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao.
This is Pranati
and Amit.
And we're from the dailypao.com, a city-specific food and culture website. And this is our weekly podcast, the Paodcast. Now, in this episode, once again, it's just Amit and me.
Because this time Purva is in fact on leave.
On leave, yes. I think last time she was away on a story, and this time she is on leave. So she won't be here with us. And this episode, we're going to be, talking about some of the big international acts that have played in Bombay in the recent months.
It's kind of like a review of the gig season that has gone past.
Right, and this is an installment of The Scene in which we talk about culture in the city. So stay tuned for The Scene.
The Scene.
So Amit, this time you're going to be doing most of the talking because you're the music writer and you've actually been for these gigs. So you're going to tell us about, the major international acts that have visited the city over the past few months and, what it means in general for, the culture scene in Bombay.
And this is, I think, kind of like a makeup for what a podcast we done some time ago where we sort of made fun of all the retro acts that had performed in the city. We talked about Shaggy was coming and the Benga Boys and all that kind of stuff, and made fun of the fact that basically, India just tends to get all these old fogies, which is not actually the case. Things have changed, and
suddenly this year, lots of young people.
Suddenly, sort of this year, very young people have come. Although there are rumors that Bryan Adams is coming back.
Oh no!
for
really?
For the 12th time. But speaking of young people, another Canadian is going to be visiting soon. Justin Bieber, whose long rumored concert will be happening in May. And I feel really sorry for all the parents out there because they're going to have to take all their, 8, 12-year-olds. I don't know what the exact
age
median
cutoff
age
is
of his, hardcore fan base is. But essentially, he's going to be performing at the D.Y. Patil Stadium in New Bombay on May 10th, when it's going to be super hot. And not only is Justin Bieber going to be performing then, he's also charging a hefty sum for his concert. Tickets start at 4,000 rupees. And they, I think, end at 76,000 rupees.
76?
Yeah, which is for some, backstage tour or something like that.
Backstage tour plus free popcorn plus free candy floss.
Yeah,
for,
I don't know what.
The kids, rich kids.
Basically, you get, every sort of category has, some additional thing. I don't know whether it's worth it spending 76,000 rupees to see Justin Bieber. It's back, but from the front. But he, and the third reason why I'm sort of feeling really sorry for these parents is because they might just have to suffer through not only Justin Bieber, but a whole bunch of Bollywood stars before Bieber actually takes the stage. Because apparently, according to the report in the Times of India, this is going to be a little similar to the Coldplay concert. While these are so far just rumors, nothing has been confirmed yet, this piece says, but A.R. Rahman, Sonu Nigam and Arijit Singh have been spoken to, which is fine. They're all decent artists, but this is a Justin Bieber concert, not exactly the perfect fit.
Well, if you're paying 76,000, the last person you want to hear is Sonu Nigam.
We might get some hate mail from Sonu Nigam fans, but anyway, it's not just them. Along with them will be a host of Bollywood biggies such as Shah Rukh Khan, Ranveer Singh and Deepika Padukone, and who are most likely to be roped in to perform and host the concert. So it sounds like it's really going to be quite similar to Coldplay.
But you actually had a good time at Coldplay.
No, that is with an asterisk, because the thing is that I had a good time at Coldplay once Jay-Z and Coldplay came on, and Jay-Z and Coldplay were, of course, the main acts. But like before that, you had to suffer through a whole, we talked about this before, how you had to suffer through, all these inane Bollywood acts, some of them lip-syncing, and they had a couple of indie acts, but those were barely there. So yeah, so it was a mixed bag. But I think the whole point is that Justin Bieber is at least top of his game commercially. He's never been, or even critically, I don't think that he's ever, people who used to make fun of Justin Bieber actually are finding themselves humming his songs now because he's got this new album, which also he owes a big debt to Skrillex and Diplo, who produced most of his album, and which is why it's so, it's actually doesn't sound like that bubblegum pop that he used to do all these years. But anyway, so basically,
good times for fans of
like
pop,
commercial
for
pop, because you heard Coldplay quite recently. Now Justin Bieber's coming, and these are artists that are they're not coming 10 years later when now basically
when they're past their prime.
Exactly. So I think that's a big deal, and it's not just them. I mean, you've had acts like Mike Posner, who's obviously maybe nowhere at the level of Bieber, but the fact is that Mike Posner had like one of the biggest hits of last year. I took a pill and ate pizza, but and that
which
was
I somehow managed to miss hearing. Like I
don't
had
know how
no
you managed to miss
idea of this
hearing, because
track.
it was in every sort of like
Where was it?
Every club, every gym was playing that track.
I don't go to gyms or clubs.
Anyway, so, that song was such a huge hit last year. It was really one of the biggest hits, and he came here for an intimate acoustic show at Summer House Cafe in Bombay, and that place, I think, has a capacity, I guess, about 400 or 500 people, and about 400 people showed up for this gig on a Thursday.
And it was a dry day,
It was a dry
right?
day. It was Republic Day. And not only that, he did this acoustic thing where it was just him on the piano, then on the guitar, and then he had an accompanist who sort of was with him on the piano for some of the gig. And this crowd knew the words to all the songs, like not just the hits, not just I Took a Pill and ate pizza, but like all the album tracks. So he has fans, and he has like 400 fans who'll show up on a dry day to watch him play.
But what was the age group?
Now this is interesting. I actually thought that Mike Posner would get like a higher at least a higher female to male ratio, but it was actually quite well balanced, maybe 65, 35, 60, 40, and the age group also didn't just seem to be like 14-year-olds, which is what it was for Alt J, weirdly enough. But, so it was fairly like people in their 20s, 30s, I guess. Like,
right.
I mean, this is a total guess, but just looking at them, it was not just, school and college kids. Definitely not.
But I mean, last year you also went for the Ed Sheeran concert.
Yeah, that was
and Ed
2
Sheeran
years
is
ago.
also
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And
a big pop
exactly.
star. But for his gig, I mean, the demographic was pretty young, wasn't it?
Yeah, his gig, I remember it was just like I was surrounded by these school-going girls, I think. I mean, and they were all up front and all screaming, and I don't remember what the turnout for that gig was, but again, up front. But that's another good example of how somebody who was in his like absolute commercial, high point.
Yeah.
That is, and if you look at it right now, Ed Sheeran is currently like the number one act in the world. Like his new song is number one all across the world.
What's the new song?
It's called Shape of You. Don't tell me you haven't heard that.
I don't
also.
think I've heard. Well, I don't know. Maybe I have, but I won't be able to hum it. But what's interesting is we were having this conversation just a few minutes earlier, and I asked you whether it's easier to hold concerts in Bombay now, and you said that it isn't. You still have to go through an enormous amount of red tape.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that so many big acts are coming.
Yeah, I think that basically people realize now that there's an audience here. I remember going for like Beyonce and Shakira like about a decade ago, and them playing to very thin audiences at MMRDA grounds. Maybe because they were pop acts. And I remember at that gig actually I saw a lot of parents bringing their kids, and typically pop music is listened by a very younger audience. So you have a lot of, kids and parents coming for these shows. And I remember both of them being amazing. I just imagine if Beyonce were to come now, what kind of audience she'd get. And I think what a difference a decade makes, because she had a really thin crowd, and I was quite amazed back then. But today I'm sure she wouldn't. And Beyonce is so much more accessible than say Jay-Z. But when Jay-Z sang Empire State of Mind, it was almost like you could hear 80,000 people singing along to the chorus. I think the things have changed to such a great degree. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is, the penetration of the internet or however. Although I remember some people saying that what happens nowadays is that when an act comes, people get so excited about it, and then even if they never heard about that act, they'll
just buy a ticket.
They'll YouTube all their songs and they'll like mug up the songs.
Become fans overnight.
And become overnight fans. But whatever. As long as people are coming out for gigs, as long as that encourages more people to hold them, I think that's great. But the other thing that you were talking about was you asked me whether it was easier for electronic music acts to come.
I was just sort of contrasting pop acts with electronic acts, and over the last few years we've had some major electronic acts coming to India. I mean, it's not just one or two, several have come to India. And they have packed out audiences. I mean, is there a bigger audience for electronic music?
I would definitely say there is, because like we were discussing, I mean, it's language agnostic, like say metal music, which really the words, even though they are really secondary because you can't make out what they're saying. Electronic music is most of the time instrumental, and it's just, music to dance to or whatever, trip out to. And like we've had festivals like Sunburn and Supersonic and, people like that coming. I mean, festivals like that really building an audience and having like these huge numbers. I think the numbers for Sunburn are greater than the numbers for Weekender, which is a more broad-based kind of, festival, monthly genres, where Sunburn is more focused on electronic music. And I think because it just has more widespread appeal. I think maybe Weekender started getting the Bollywood acts, right? Sunburn had more people coming.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely that. But again, I mean, the fact is that electronic music acts also see India as a very lucrative market, and I mean, it's not exactly the best criteria or best sort of reflection of an artist's talent, but if you just look at the DJ Mag top 100 list, right, I think that it's pretty much that every artist on the top 10 has played in India except for Calvin Harris. I think Calvin Harris, ironically, is the most pop of them, possibly.
Right.
And I'm sure he'll probably come someday, but maybe he's just too expensive. But every DJ on that list has performed here at some point, which shows you how attractive it is. And I was in fact in the gym when they were playing. Eric Prides has another big DJ who finally came to India to perform at Supersonics and also did a gig in Bombay at the Playboy Club, was talking about his shows in India and how they were playing basically his SoundCloud radio show. And he was talking about how, audiences in India were one of the best that he's ever experienced. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he didn't need to say that on a show. He obviously, when everybody is doing the gig, then they say, "Oh, you're the best crowd ever." And all that. But he said that on a show that basically he people, and I think that generally, and this is a common thing, I think that Indians are very responsive. But I think that what is also encouraging is the fact that now slowly we're getting to see that there's an audience for every kind of music. For instance, Supersonic also had Macklemore.
Right.
And that was a pretty much only hip hop. They decided to have a hip hop contingent, and that was basically him. And now his new album hasn't done as well as his last album, but he's still somebody who's very much in the,
who's recognizable.
Who's recognized today. I mean, so it's not like he's come 5 years down the line. Like we waited a long time to see Snoop Dogg, but they got him here while he was still hot.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Being a music journalist, you've been for all these pop gigs, and these are not necessarily artists who you listen to or have on your iPod. So what is it like for you? And I'm sure you will go for the Justin Bieber concert.
No, I'm not going for Justin Bieber. I had decided that I'm not going for Justin Bieber because I honestly, like if he had like 3 albums like his current album, I would have gone, but I just know that the set list is going to be dominated by his older material.
You're not going for Justin Bieber.
And I can't deal with, I just cannot deal with I could do that, even though a lot of people think Coldplay is cheesy. At the end of Coldplay, I felt that, okay, those 2 hours of Coldplay and that half an hour of Jay-Z was worth it. The sort of suffering through those 10 hours
let me ask you my question. My question is this, that, how does it feel to be at these gigs by these young pop acts, people who you don't normally listen to, and in a crowd of screaming girls and boys?
It is strange. It is weird sometimes, but I think that also I realize that it's also kind of making up for lost time, very honestly, because having been going to gigs like since whatever the past 20 years and not being able to see those acts that you wanted to see at the kind, I think that it's just an experience. I actually love it when I am sort of with, standing surrounded by people who are really into the music. I mean, quite often I'll go with friends, and friends will not necessarily want to go right up front because they feel that it's just too uncomfortable. But I want to be there. One, also because I'm slightly blind and I can't really see the stage from very far off. But I also like being there and seeing what people are experiencing and how they're getting sort of, that enjoying this so much. And I remember the Vaccines that played the Pune Weekender a few years ago, and I actually went and stood right up front, and a lot of people were really flummoxed by that choice of headliner, and they didn't really get into the gig. I had actually seen the Vaccines before in the UK, and I watched them right from the back of the stage near the bar, and still enjoyed it because I like their music. But again, not very mainstream pop, but being in front where only the hardcore fans were there was much more fun than, say, being in the middle where a lot of people just simply weren't getting it.
Right.
And I think that's what it is. And if I were to go for Justin Bieber, I don't think I'd be right up front. I think I'd just get literally stampeded by
little kids.
Little
babies.
I think Ed Sheeran fans are better behaved than Justin Bieber fans.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, all you people who haven't bought Justin Bieber tickets, I guess they're probably sold out by now.
I think, they'll probably now. They were 4,000 was the minimum and 8,000. And I really hope that the 4,000 doesn't mean you're going to be way at the back like those free tickets at Coldplay were.
Yeah, it probably means exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, it serves you guys right for listening to Justin Bieber. Anyway, that's it for this episode, and we'll be back next week. For more on what's happening in the city, read thedailypao.com. Also subscribe to our newsletter on the website. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're The Daily Pao. And you can find this podcast on the Indus Vox Media SoundCloud page, as well as iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn.
If you like listening to the podcast, check out Geek Fruit. Hosted by Uber geeks Tejas Menon and Jishnu Guha, this show talks about geek culture from an Indian perspective. Star Wars, comic books, science fiction and fantasy, TV shows, and more.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcast, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.